Hey guys, so I am making this video again. You saw it yesterday. I saw that it has some views, and you know, um, so long story short, I wanted to come back here and make it because I realized I could have said some things that were very insensitive. And yesterday I just kind of made it on like a whim, right? I was just like, God, this is something that has to be talked about. And so I just want to come on and just like get it off my chest. Like, okay, this is something that's very important. I want to be honest. I want to lend myself to, changes and progress, right, in this area. And I was a little zealous without wisdom in many different ways. And so I made the video. I said some things that I realized, you know what, maybe it wasn't the best way to say that. And so here I am again. And I just want to share this with, anybody listening. So I have gone through some things, right, where God really allowed there to be some things exposed that I needed, to address, right, in terms of my own health, my own neurobiological health. And so in that, with that, what it did is it opened my eyes to how much we've missed in terms of the way that neurobiological health is dealt with, the way that the symptoms that show up in people's lives, of neurobiological conditions, right, show up, and the way that those conversations get held, and the way that professionals often address or approach these things. Some of them ignorant, and some of them just by way of their what am I trying to say, conventional, or the way that they're taught to approach certain things or behaviors, or struggles, or whatever the case is. So long story short, let me say this. So you saw the title, and what I hope, I'm like, I want to be like Martin Luther King. Okay, I want to have a dream. And and it's not to make light of anything that, if anybody clicked on this video and it's, the title, and you have a struggle, like, trust me, my heart goes out to you, based on, like I said, the things that I've had to deal with myself. I want to be like Martin Luther King. I want to have a dream. And my dream is that that professionals in the mental health field, professionals in the counseling, and especially in the realm of coaching, because sometimes I feel like in coaching these days, and I know somebody might get offended with this, but I feel like there's a bit of a reach. I've had some things said to me personally by someone who's an amazing coach, but they're not trained, right? They're not really trained to really understand, brain health, brain chemistry. They're not really trained to understand neuroscience. And so I think there's a few things that I want. So there's a few things I want to share. One is, I think being a coach is an amazing thing. I think being a coach is one of the best things we could have come up with, because I have found that even some coaches are more I found that even some coaches are more focused on helping people be progressive, than people who tend to practice, mental health and counseling in a more traditional way. And that's not to step on anybody's toes. It's just me. It's just, I'm just speaking from my own observation and experience and all the things. I know some amazing coaches. However, there's a few things I want to address. Number one, I want to say that I have a dream, okay, that anybody who's a mental health coach who is not trained in either psychology, or not genuinely trained in psychology, or mental health, or who's also not trained in neurobiology, neuroscience, right? I just have a dream that they would be very careful to stay away from suggesting diagnosis to people, or or even coming close to it, right? Or suggesting, anything that's beyond the scope of what coaching is really designed to, to allow them to do, right? To stay within their lane. And that's not to be mean, it's just being honest, because I feel like we're in a world where this whole thing of like mental health has been so mishandled. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from a lot of observation. I have a lot of watch time hours out there, from watching a lot of doctors, a lot of psychologists, a lot of skilled, trained, and specialized people who have either admitted, or you can see the perpetuation of what I'm talking about. where this area has been a very mishandled, and some of it just seems like genuine great hearts with a lot of ignorance, and some of it seems like just people who um I don't know what the other part I don't know what the other category is, okay? But I'll say this. So that's one dream. Number one, if you're a coach, if you're a mental health coach, just keep in mind that, the damage that you can do to someone when you mishandle your sort of scope, if you will, by attempting to suggest, diagnosis or, certain conditions or just different things. Very, 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 very risky. Okay. And then also, I want to speak to people who do have license and, who do a lot of the people in the mental health, world and everything. And this is literally me not, let me just say, let me preface this. Okay. I'm speaking from a layman. I took about 4 psychology classes throughout the course of my obtaining, all whatever levels of degrees and education that I have. I took collectively probably about 4 psychology classes. I loved them. I did excellent in them, but I will not claim to know more than I know. Okay, so I'm speaking from a layman's position. But what I'm an expert in is my own health. I'm an expert in my own experience. And so my point is, I have through I'm an expert in my own experiences, and I came to a very interesting point in my life, recently, where it became clear to me that there are things that are being either overlooked and not addressed or, at all when it comes to mental health. Bottom line, let me say this. I feel like we have to wake up. We have to really get our eyes open about brain health. And we have to really bring the brain into the room and into the conversations about mental health and about behavioral health and all these different things. We have to get more conversations going, guys, about brain health. I want to say that I love the progress that we've made, especially in the especially when it comes to people who look like myself. I'm very proud and encouraged the by the fact that we have become more open and more supportive, right? And we've taken more ownness when it comes to our own mental health, and our we become more supportive and everything as far as us getting counseling, and we've gotten over these we're starting to make progress and getting over these weird stigmas, and all this weird language like, oh, she's crazy, or he's going to see a, what's that term they used to use, he's going to see a shrink, and all that weird language that we used to have around it. I'm grateful that we've progressed so much to where it's like, now you're not cool if you don't have a counselor. You're not cool if you don't have a coach. You know what I mean? And therapy, people even have now standards where they say, look, I'm not dating somebody who doesn't believe in therapy. I think all that is just definitely it has to be appreciated. It has to be acknowledged, it has to be celebrated. I do, however, think that the next step, because there's always layers, right, to progress. And I'm saying this about everybody, but I'm about to say, I'm not saying this to any particular ethnic group. Um, I think we have to get more. The next step in the progress is to really start to understand how to have conversations that segregate mental, meaning this sort of mystical, this sort of behavioral focus or whatever kind of thing, or what I mean, all the intangible stuff that needs to, symptoms and things that need to get addressed, and sort of struggles that people find themselves in, versus brain health. We don't have enough conversations about brain health, and what I think we've done is looped, kind of umbrella, if you will, everything under the same umbrella. We've called it all mental health, and not really separated it enough as far as the actual organ that can be damaged, struggling, needing, whatever kind of attention that it needs. And so that is literally my plea to you guys, especially you guys who are in the mental health field, to really start to, figure out, I don't know how that looks. I'm, like I said, I'm coming to you from a receiver, right? I'm not the one, I'm not a, I don't practice this stuff. But as a person on the receiving end, And like I said, I've had different, if I haven't said it yet, I've had 6 different counselors in throughout my life on my own mental health journey, right? Not because I'm crazy, but because I had to fire 6 of them. And then I had to, I'd not say crazy, forgive me for that, but forgive me. I'll date myself with some of the things come out of my mouth, which is why I deleted the video yesterday. But I just really, not because I've been, had such a hard time. Some of it's because I've had to, sort of come to different iterations of myself where this time I needed help to get over that particular experience and that one. But then, like I said, I've had to fire, a lot of them because of something else I mentioned before I end this video. But I just really want to, I did not get clear on, just true healing and true progression and truly overcoming some of those internal silent battles that I was fighting until I started focusing on my brain health. And that really gave me a clue. And I said, you know what? I think there is something that people need to be, we need to wake up to. I think the next step in the progress of, like I said, what we're, calling, all of what we're calling mental health. But I think that something that we have to really bring more into this conversation is our brain health. Um, I don't know how else to say it, but we have to get brain health on board, guys, when it comes to if we really want to make some great progress. Because I think from experience that this is something that's under taught, under discussed, under addressed. I think that it's we can't really be successful in treating our whole selves if we neglect brain health. We have a lot of focus on, heart health. We have a lot of focus on, cancer awareness and all the different ways that cancer can show up, all the different, parts of us it affects. We have a lot of focus on breast health. We have a lot of focus on prostate health. We have a lot of focus on all these organs that are so vital. And we want to, that we want to, create healing, sort of, focus around. So the question now that I have is how do we get this um oh, instead of me saying it in a negative way, let me say this. So at this point, I feel like we just got to change that. We have to add to that the most vital organ in our bodies, the organ that informs all other aspects of who we are as a person, the organ that is connected to the most vital um nerve, if you will, in our entire body, which is the vagus nerve. I'm not an expert. I'm just speaking from, like I said, experience. And so, this is what informs all the areas of our bodies, guys. There's so many conditions that can come from poor brain health. And so, how do we get all these other conversations and not somehow leave this pink elephant in the room with this little thing that's in our head that we call our brain? That's the executive organ in our bodies. And so, anyway, that's my plea to you guys. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a mental health professional. That was not my choice of studies when I went through, college. I have considered it lately. I thought, like, God, I don't want to be jumping around like a rabbit, but I do pray, Lord, if at some point, maybe by the time I'm this age or that age, I will seek out and discipline myself to even, to maybe get something to help this particular, in this particular area of life. Only if God allows it. But I just wanted to plead with you guys who do. And I want to speak to the individuals who don't have licenses and background. I want to speak to people just for your own individual self and your own individual health. Get into it. Get into the whole thing of like brain health, from the aspect of eating, the things you can learn and understand about how your brain gets impacted. Like, gosh, I think we don't have enough conversations. I remember when I was a kid, there was this commercial that would come on and it would say, it would like show like, if I'm not mistaken, I know I'm going to date myself by sharing this, but there was this commercial that would come on and it would say, this is your brain. And I think it would show like a skillet, and then it would say, "This is your brain on," like an egg, and then it would put the egg in the hot grease and say, "This is your brain on drugs." And that video, as a kid, it was effective to me. It was like, no, I'm never doing drugs. I don't want my brain to be like fried, like jacked up. And so, if you take that little, I know it sounds weird for me to, for me to use that, but it may sound weird. But if you take that little lesson, little connection that commercial made between if you put drugs in your body, it can end up in your brain. if you take that connection and you copy and paste that on so many things in life that impact our brain health, how much more educated do we need to be as people? How much would that impact, children who are now sticking everything, God forbid, I'm not trying to offend anybody, please, but I'm just saying, how much would that inform, or not just children, but how much would that inform people about be cognizant, be aware, like understand that your brain is not some imaginary thing that can, in your body. Like we need to raise more awareness about brain health. We need to raise more awareness from a medical aspect. We need to raise more health, more awareness from, like I said, the impacts that it has on behavior. What are we saying about children? How many children are suffering and not know that they have something, going on with their brains that can be helped, that can be changed? I recently listened to an amazing, talk that was held between this amazing doc neuroscience. I forget exactly what his exact title is at this moment, but I know his name was Dr. Amen, and he was telling us this amazing story about this young man who he was having all these behavior issues and just really stuck in life, and how he treated him, how people were diagnosing him with different things, and he was in and out of juvenile, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to tell the story, but he was going through all these, he was having a very troublesome life, and and Dr. Amen talked about how he pulled the boy aside, he treated him, and he scanned his brain, and how from there he treated him. And now the guy is like not been in jail since. And now the guy is married, and now he has a career, and now he's building a family, and he's progressed with his life. And so when you think about that, I'm like, God, what are we missing? How do we have all this energy? And I know I'm focused on the glass being half empty when I say, how have we not? Forgive me for that. But it's like moving forward, how do we raise this, guys? How do we raise the awareness about this? How do we get this into the conversations about mental health? How do we get this into the conversations about behavioral health? How do we create, just like I said, more focus, more information, more education around brain health? How do we bring that into conversations about nutrition? I've been big into nutrition all my life. And I will be honest with you, a great portion of that focus has been, what herbs do I need to take for my heart? What herbs do I need to take for, all these other things, my nerves and my hormones and my skin and my, all the things, and my kidneys and my organs and all the stuff. But I haven't spent energy on what herbs do I take for my, to help my brain health. And now that I have, I've come into some amazing herbs that I never knew were good for the brain. And when I tell you, they are game changers. And so I just wanted to make this video, guys, because I wanted to lend myself to this conversation. Like, let's start the conversation. I'm going to post this on every platform that I have access to. If feel free to share this video. But even if you don't share it, share the information. If you're a mental health specialist, please, hear my cry for you, that this is something we have to do, guys. I know I've seen some amazing people on the platforms that are out there really making a difference in trying to spread the word and bring more people into mental health awareness and all this stuff. But I think some of you guys are missing the mark. And I don't say that as a criticism. I say at least not as a at least as a constructive one. I say it to say, listen, we have to get more awareness about this, guys. We have to understand that there could be something deeper. We have to take a deeper look, and deal with the physical organ more than we actually do. So anyway, hope this helps. I hope it's able to help somebody. Maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're feeling stuck, or maybe you've gone to all the counselors. Maybe you've gone to all the counselors in the world, and you're like, look, I'm still stuck. And this is what I was going to inject. This is what I was going to say to you before. I didn't want to inject it in the point I was making earlier, and I said I'll come back before I ended the video. I want to say this too. And this is gonna bother somebody. Like, I want to be very careful. I was listening to therapy. I'm gonna say it this way. For years, like I said, I've had 6 different counselors in my life, and I had to fire some of them. And that's no offense, and I will never say which ones, for in case any one of them listens to this. And the reason is, for me personally, is because I was paying, and I was kind of staying longer than I felt like I should stay. I just kept going and going. It's like an energizing battery, right? Just going, going, going. And I was not progressing. And I really kind of got over the fact that why do I have to come in here and talk about the same struggle over and over again and over and over again and over and over again? And I just kept feeling stuck. And I said, what is this about? I feel like it's kind of like reopening the wound every time I come. And with conventional counseling, that's one of the things that was actually what I was taught. It just well, this is what you experience, this is what you go through. And the reason that kind of made me personally get turned off is because I'm like, I just lost the belief that that was how it had to be. And I'm not saying this to like I said, speak against any of my previous counselors or anything. I love them all genuinely, and I have a lot of respect for all of them. And so However, I moved on from that and I got into coaching. And the reason this particular coach helped me is because he really he had a conviction. He's like, I'm not here to take you over and over again through all this. I'm here to tell you what you need to change. Let's talk about a plan. Let's talk about how we're going to move forward. And I'm here to help you move out of the beliefs that these experiences have created for you. And so that I found that very helpful. I know some of you guys in the mental health world may hear this and you may think, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get her. I don't like her. I'm going to, ban her. I'm just going to lend myself to this, guys, at the risk of people not liking to hear what I'm saying. I have a lot of passion about this particular area of, of life and study and practice and everything. I just don't, and I considered it strongly, 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 strongly when I was in school, but I will give this to you guys. I said, I cannot handle it. I said, I cannot live the rest of my life because I'm going to, my hats off to you guys because you're wired a special way for the fact that you can handle, giving yourself and serving people in this particular area. My heart goes out to you. I thank you guys. I appreciate the way you serve. I appreciate the fact that you can take on listening to all the, the hard things that people have gone through and still manage to, which I hope you're managing, but still manage to maneuver your way through life in a, prayerfully in a great way. But I think every therapist probably needs a therapist, to be honest. But anyway, I just want to share this, guys. It's my genuine plea for you guys to, for all of us, for us to really open up the conversation about brain health. Just explore it, at least be open to it. Anyway, that's my beg for you guys. It's my question. That's my Martin Luther King dream, if you will. Is that we really change things up by starting to bring the brain into the conversation and really, like I said, separating, figuring out where the line lies between actual, what we classify as mental health versus brain health. Anyway, I love you guys. I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me, and have mercy on me if I stepped on any toes. I love you guys, and I'm, just sharing my story.